This is Big Ideas Made Simple. I'm Jess Webber, and I created this show to connect you with the knowledge, tools, and resources you need to build the most impactful version of your life. Now, a few weeks ago, I walked into a room of nearly 400 women, every single one of them wearing some shade or variation of pink, at an event where maybe I knew like two, three people going in, besides the hosts and some of the speakers. And yet, the second I stepped into the room, people started calling out my name and walking up to me, not because they recognized me from a previous keynote or this podcast or going viral on socials, but because I gave away something to the group before I ever even showed up at the event. I was at the Pink Skirt Project Summit, which is hosted by Renee Warren, the beautiful better half of Dan Martell. And this was my second year attending. So the first year gave me something that I didn't know I was even missing, which honestly was a real sense of my identity outside of titles or roles other people had handed to me. And so this year I went back different, not like a different person, but honestly, a significantly more clear one, clear on how I wanted to show up and the specific impact that I actually wanted to have. And I believe that really matters because several speakers that week talked about purpose and alignment and impact. And normally a room like that can leave you potentially feeling behind. You aren't where those speakers are. But this time, this year, I didn't feel convicted at all. I felt affirmed. And every time I told one of those women who I am and what I'm building, nobody questioned it. I didn't get funny looks. The only thing that I heard was, when is it coming? Or obviously. And I'm telling you that because it kind of sets up what happens next. So clarity for me didn't just change how I felt walking into the room. It changed what I was willing to do while I was in it. So here's the thing that you need to know about me that has nothing to do with this brand or a strategy or anything like that. I naturally take incredibly detailed, organized notes. I'm going to blame my mother, who's an English teacher, and my father, who is an engineer. Somewhere in the marriage of those two, I turned out to be someone who needs structure to process information. And I'm a visual learner, not an auditory one. So I have to see everything written down, which means that every conference I go to, every event, I build out a really structured, detailed outline and I fill it in while everybody else is scribbling in the margins of a notebook they'll probably never open again. And I'm going to be honest, I never thought of this. And I never once thought of this as a skill. I mean, it's naturally just what my brain does. And I say that because I know some of the people who listen to this show, and a lot of you have probably some version of this as well. There is something in your world that you do without effort that other people find themselves stuck on. And because it costs you next to nothing, you've probably filed it mentally away under, oh, that's not a big deal, right next to everything else you assumed anyone could do if they ever tried. And that filing system is wrong in more places than it's right. So normally, when someone asks for my notes, I just share a plain view only link from Google and move on with my life. It had literally never occurred to me that the habit itself, the structure, the organization, might be worth something to somebody on its own, separate from whatever the content of the event was even about. And so going into this event, I did something spur of the moment. I swear that I did not plan this in advance because truly the idea just showed up while I was snuggling in bed with a sick kid during nap time. I had this thought that if I always give away the finished notes for free without thinking twice, and people found that wildly valuable, maybe the structure underneath them would also benefit somebody else because I do actually have a system. And so I ran this test in two parts just to see kind of which people found more valuable. So before the event, I took my blank template, completely empty except for the speaker list, the agenda, their book links, that kind of thing. And I gave it away. So there was no content. I gave the container away. I set it up behind a simple subdomain and dropped that into the event group chat thread in WhatsApp. Set it up in such a way that people could just go make their own copy in one click with no permission requests, no waiting on me to share something. And what was so cool was roughly 10-15% of the group opted into that before I ever even got to Kelowna. After the event, I turned around and I gave away the same filled in version, all of my actual notes with the same setup, new link, shared again. And anybody who grabbed the blank template could also get access to the filled in one. So 2 drops. One showed people how I start, the other one showed them how I finish. But here's the thing that I didn't expect from this. From the first morning of the event, before I met any of these women in person, people were walking up to me directly. People who joined my list off that first link or seen me show up in the WhatsApp thread or even followed me on Instagram after I posted about it. They'd stop me and say, "Oh my gosh, you're Jess. You're the notes lady. Thank you so much for that template." Now, what was even funnier to me was more than one person asked if I had used AI to build it all out and they wanted to know platform and details. But the thing was, I had to tell them no. That is genuinely just how my brain works, which I honestly do think is the funniest part. The thing that felt so ordinary to me in terms of organization and structure was detailed enough that most people assumed that a machine built it. And it's funny because now that stops me for a second because I had gone into this entire experiment not even sure that anybody would care. It wasn't a ploy as a marketing tactic. I was just offering something that I do purely for myself with zero audience in mind, seeing if it was something that would benefit somebody else. And it was so great because it was the gateway to start having conversations with humans in the room. So people would stop me. They would say something about, so people would stop me. They would say something about me being the notes lady. And then the conversation would just keep moving. And it made it such an easy, natural next step. "Oh, what do you do?" I'd tell them I was a speaker and a coach. I didn't try to cram every piece of my business and identity into one sentence. So I'd let them ask follow-up questions. "Oh, what do you speak on?" Or "What kind of coaching do you do?" Or what's your background like? "Where did you learn how to take notes like that?" Right? And more often than not, we would get into it deeply and I could serve them specifically by speaking to what resonated with them. And so it was such an amazing thing for me, not because I wanted to be famous or be recognized, but it gave me such an incredible way to connect with people because it wasn't about the podcast or my coaching practice or even a keynote. It was, I was a notes lady. And that label turned out to be the easiest door I have ever walked into in terms of starting real conversations. Here's the space that I think matters the most to me, though. Last year, I paid for the same VIP ticket that I paid for this year. And again, I knew probably 3 people in the room. And those were the 3 that I hung out with most of the time during the event. I actually would ghost out during lunch, though, and just go back and hide in my hotel room for a while, mostly because it was a tight fit room, lots of people, and hot for summer in Canada. And so walking up to a stranger cold when I'm kind of dysregulated and saying, "Hi, I'm Jess. Who are you? What do you do?" It's not comfortable for me. No matter how frequently I talk to people, and I mean, truly, anybody who walked up to me, happy to start the conversation with them. But it was like that extra little oomph was difficult for me. And I didn't have to get braver this year. I didn't force myself to show up differently or do something unnatural to myself. I let the notes do the introduction. I gave away something and I made conversation easier for myself before I was ever standing in Kelowna. That intro made my life so much easier. And I never had to say, "Hi, I'm Jess. I'm the notes lady," or "Hi, I'm Jess. What do you do?" It made things so simple and such an easy lift that it changed the way that I was able to connect with people in the room. And that's what really mattered. It wasn't about, collecting emails or seeing how many people actually care about notes, but it solved something for me that I hadn't even thought about on my own. Walking into a room of 400 strangers and finding a way to naturally connect with them instead of orbiting the edges or feeling pushy or salesy or anything like that. So, I I think the other key piece of this that I really want to talk about here though is the fact that I didn't invent anything new to make this happen for myself. I didn't become a different version of me. I didn't create a different lead magnet. I didn't do something that felt canned, spammy, or salesy. I showed up with something that I naturally do by myself, for myself on autopilot, something wildly unremarkable to me, and gave it away just to see if it helped others. It fell in line with my North Star. And it turns out that it was beneficial enough that I walked out of this event 2 days later with far more phone numbers and coffee dates and real opportunities than I ever expected. Not because I was on the hunt for them. I didn't need Jaws theme music and a shark fin. I went in providing value first and let the connections come from that. So it wasn't go to Kelowna, wear some pink, and find some major superpower. Because the thing that makes you wildly unique isn't buried somewhere waiting to be uncovered. You have things that make you special, and you've had them the whole time. You are probably just the type of person like me that didn't ever think about testing it outside of your own head. Now, in I Love Coaching, in our community where I wrote all the curriculum for building a scalable coaching business, I have a habit of using the phrase with our coaches when I'm training. And I always say, "You do you, boo boo." And I think it fits in the context of this too, because showing up authentically as yourself is one of the most underused, underrated strategies people have when they go to something like this. Everyone sits down and they're like, "I have to build the perfect offer. I need a custom QR code or a discount code specific to the event, something tailored and flashy and unique." And that can get so overwhelming so fast. You don't need any of it. The whole "you do you, boo boo" thing becomes a quick audit. Like, it's two questions for yourself. And so I'm going to challenge you to think first, what is something that comes completely natural for you that could be special for somebody else? What do you have in your world? Is it a system? Is it a document like I had? What is it that you have that's special? And then where can you go give it away? Where can you go provide value to somebody else, put a deposit into a new relationship before you ever ask for anything back? And so if you look at what I did, I gave away that shareable, editable note structure that I've always given away. That was my thing. And then with the second question, where can I deposit that? Where can I give it away or provide value? It was in a room of 400 strangers, many of them flying in from other countries. I mean, it took me 20 hours and 4 flights to get there. And so giving away something that was a system and a structure alleviated pressure for a lot of people that were walking in there so that they were settled and they could just focus on what was being said. So I wanted to push you. That is the entire process here. You already have everything you need. You're not hunting for some magical unicorn or some hidden gift. You're testing something obvious in a place where someone can feel the value. And this makes me think of something that Cal Newport has and says in So Good They Can't Ignore You. For him, he makes the case that you should not be chasing passion as a starting point because passions don't announce themselves in advance. The thing that comes first is honestly a rare or valuable skill. But you're only going to find out if something is rare by putting it in front of people and letting them give you feedback. That's the thing is people are the ones that will give it attention or build trust. A real conversation is the filtering mechanism. Skills prove themselves through response, not through feelings. And so I want to challenge you, listener. Here's the thing you should do this week. Go look in your Google Drive, in your phone, in your bookcase. I don't care where it is. Name something that you already do without being asked, without even hardly thinking about it. And name the thing that is so obvious it doesn't feel like a skill to you. Strip it down into something simple. So there's no branding, no funnel, no web pages or automations, and go put it in front of one group of people and see what comes back. You do not need a massive documented strategy for this. You just need to go do the test and get the data. Now, I'm saying this to all of my lovely humans who think big and think fast and think like me about perfecting a funnel. You don't need some elaborate version of this before you launch it. And so I'm going to tell you exactly what I did from my phone in bed holding my kid while he was asleep. Because I think that you need to hear how simple and easy I made this so that you can turn around and figure out the same version for yourself. Again, no custom landing page, no design work, no Canva doc, no nothing. I created a Google Doc and then I made it shareable. And I put the little, instead of /edit or /view behind it, I don't know if you know this is a fun little trick. If you put /copy, it'll allow people to go in and make their own copy for themselves. So you never get a request of, can I have a copy of this? You don't get all the stupid emails, so-and-so has requested to be an editor, right? So simple Google Doc link. And then I made an opt-in form on Flowdesk. Said, hey, here's the title of the doc. Here's what you get inside the doc. Where should I send you a copy of it? And they put in their name and their email and they click send. It automatically pulls up the doc, lets them make a copy, and sends it to their email inbox in case they lose it. That's it. One automated email as soon as they click send. And then I took that form URL and I put it behind my website as a subdomain. So I never had to remember what the URL was because I already knew my website is jesswebber.com. And so I made it pinkskirt.jesswebber.com or pinkskirtnotes.jesswebber.com. And that was it. That was the system. There was no, oh my gosh, I need a QR code. Oh my gosh, I need this. No developer, no designer, no tutorials to record on how to use it. I just took the thing that I already did and put it in front of people instead of letting it sit as an idea or in a folder on my computer. And what made that event the most life-changing that I've been to wasn't the color scheme of the venue or the stunning outfits of Renee and Anita. And it wasn't the speaker lineup, which I've heard half of them before in multiple times. They're incredible, by the way. I mean, I tell them that to their faces. But it wasn't the people on the stages or the event organizers or even the swag. It was the intentionality of the room and the reason why that many of those people were there. The notes worked for that same reason. Not because they were polished, but because they were real and honest and had no agenda attached to them. So I walked into Pink Skirt as a speaker and a coach, and I walked out the notes lady. And it turns out that might have been the best business card I never meant to make. So I'm Jess Webber. This has been an episode of Big Ideas Made Simple, and I'll catch you next week. Thanks for listening.